Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again and we're going to visit another new state. I've never reviewed anything from Tennessee before, so this is going to be another first for the channel. So this time we're going to Nashville, kind of the home of country music I guess. I always enjoyed a bit of Johnny Cash personally, but we're going to do my first ever review from Bearded Iris Brewing Company, who are based in the Germantown area of the city, which is just a little bit to the north of the main drag. But today we're going to have a taste of their Chief of Chiefs. This is the double dry hop version, the DDH, which is a double IPA coming in at 7.5%. This one's a New England type IPA and it should be really quite nice. There's Citra, Simcoe and Mosaic in this one, so a really kind of good dose of American hops in this. So really looking forward to this. As I say, my first beer from Tennessee. I think it's the first time I've ever tasted a beer from Tennessee as well actually, so really looking forward to this one. I did enjoy my visit to Tennessee, which was way back in like 2009, maybe 2008, I'm not quite sure. I think it was 2008 actually that I was back there, so 10 years ago actually. But really nice city that. I enjoyed looking at all the guitars because I play a little bit myself, but looking forward to trying this beer, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this one. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, a link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Bearded Iris Brewery. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being constantly added to, of course, and please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. And it's been too long since I've been in America actually. I do need to get back out there and try a few more of their beers. But anyway, on to my notes about the brewery then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Bearded Iris Brewing are based in the Germantown part of Nashville, just a little bit to the north of the main kind of drag, if you like, near the Batman building as I called it when I was younger. But this company were founded back in 2015. But the two men behind the brewery are Paul Vaughan and Kavon Torgry, and both of these guys had been friends since elementary school. But Paul attended Middle Tennessee State University and he homebrewed before he worked for Sweetwater Brewing in Georgia, while Kavon studied law at the University of Tennessee. But after college, they drank a lot of beer together and they often talked about brewing. They said they used to spend a lot of late nights kind of brainstorming and playing pool and stuff like this. But they eventually drew up a business plan and then they found investors and got to work actually setting up the brewery. So they now have a 10,000 square foot brewery with a 1,500 square foot tap room, which opened in February of 2016 in the Germantown area. Apparently they'd been looking at East Tennessee for their main site, but the site that they'd actually looked at for the first time fell through, and they eventually got this site in Germantown to replace it, which looks really nice. If you have a look at the pictures of it, it does look really quite modern and really cool actually. So have a look at the website, as I said, the link's in the description below. But the focus for these guys is mainly on hoppy beers, but if you look through the list of beers that they have, I think there was about 40 or 50, something like that when I was scrolling through it. But they focus mainly on the hoppy beers, but there are a few stouts. There was a few sort of Belgian type beers in there as well, like saisons and stuff like that, which seemed really cool. But one of the interesting points about this brewery is that they've also got two big Hungarian wine tanks in their brewery as well, which seem really cool. They're kind of, I think there's oak that they're cladded in, and they do use those for a few beers and things like that as well. So really kind of interesting brewery, this one. They've got a few different things in it. The name Bearded Iris apparently comes from the fact that the iris is the Tennessee state flower, and both of the brewery owners, from what I understand, with both of the brewery founders, do have beards, which is a very common thing in the craft beer world, the whole hipster thing, if you like. I'm allowed to have a beard because I'm Swedish and Scottish, so that's the main thing. But yeah, really cool brewery, this one. As I say, this is my first review from Tennessee, but that's all you really need to know about the brewery just now. If you want to learn any more, do check out the brewery website. You'll find the link in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook. They seem to be a pretty prolific brewery, so probably Facebook is a good way to keep up to date with all the different beers that these guys are producing. But let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open up. There you are. But you can see nicely presented there is the iris symbol there, which is pretty cool. Most of the beers, from what I gather, do have a very similar style of artwork. It's just different sort of colours and things like that these different labels have. It doesn't really say much on the side here. It just tells you 7.5% double IPA. So in fairness, this one is kind of on the lower side of things for a double IPA. I think it's pretty much 7.5% for me, I guess, would be the very bottom of what I would consider a double IPA. I would say I would have always thought a double IPA was like 8% and above, but yeah, we'll go with it for this one. But yeah, this is I guess a 400 and it says it's 16 fluid ounces, and this is the thing, the Americans really need to start using the metric system. I would guess this is the equivalent to the sort of 440 milliliter cans that we get over in from a lot of the breweries now. Quite a few of the breweries in Scotland and things like that, and in England, they're starting to do these 440 milliliter cans, which I think are supposed to be the equivalent of the American 16 fluid ounce. I don't know why they don't just do half litres like everybody else does. That's one of the things that really gets me about some of these English breweries. But like I said, 7.5% double IPA, hopped with Citra, Simcoe and Mosaic. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I actually bought this beer in Brewdog in Aberdeen, the original flagship bar, if you like. And it was just one that I saw. You know, I had a holiday in Tennessee a good couple of years ago. That was the year that I went to NASA camp in Huntsville in Alabama. That was like, as I say, I think I'm pretty sure it was 2008 that I went out there. And it was really, really cool actually. I really enjoyed my my time at Huntsville. And we went up to Tennessee to see the Grand Ole Opry. There was also music at the Grand Ole Opry, which was really cool, and spent some time in the city. But it was a nice town and really, really quite cool. From what I remember, in Tennessee, instead of paying an income tax, they have a 10% purchasing tax, consumption tax, however you want to call it, and that was to avoid paying the income tax, which was quite funny. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a nice bright, I would say it's a kind of bright yellow, this one. It's not even really orangey at all, it is just a really kind of bright yellow, a little bit deeper in the middle of course because of the density and things like that. The head, surprisingly on this one, has just faded away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer, but it was kind of frothy and white when it was there. But yeah, looks pretty nice, pretty much as you would expect from the New England IPA. If I stick my fingers behind the glass, you can't see anything through that at all. It is pretty opaque. But when you open the can up, you really can smell some of the blueberries coming out of this. That's the Mosaic hop giving you these nice kind of blueberry notes out of this beer. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on. But yeah, that smells really quite nice. So for me, with this one, you can smell a little bit of the passion fruit just kind of forming the base of the beer. But for me, it's the Mosaic hop that's really sort of coming out. The Mosaic hop is the one that's jumping out of this one for me. So, I mean, it's the blueberries and a bit of that kind of tangerine orange as well. Those are the two main characteristics you get from the Mosaic hop. And for me, it's really those that are kind of jumping out. I mean, there is a little bit of mango in there. There's a wee bit of passion fruit as well, and the passion fruit's the Simcoe. The Simcoe all the way is always straight up passion fruit, and the mango comes from the Citra, and usually the Citra gives you a little bit of like lychee and things like that. And in fairness, you can get a little bit of the lychee in there. It kind of mixes with the blueberry a bit, but for me, the Mosaic is the one that's really jumping out the aroma at me. It's the blueberries that are kind of sticking out of this beer at me. But like I say, the other fruits that you'd expect from the other hops are all there, but I really think blueberries jumping out at me with this one. I think the mango, when your nose adjusts to it, you do get a little bit more of the mango. The passion fruits are there, but blueberry and sort of tangerine oranges for me are the main kind of components of the fruity side of this beer. You can pick up a little bit of a kind of sort of bready quality to this beer. You can smell a little bit of that oaty creaminess that you'd obviously get with the New England IPAs too. And there is maybe a little bit of a biscuity quality to this one as well. It's got a little bit of, I should probably say cookies actually to the Americans. Biscuits, our biscuits that we have in Scotland are American cookies, so it does have a little bit of that sort of cookie note to it. But of course the cookie to us is a specific thing, like the little chocolate chip stuff. But yeah, definitely has a little bit of that kind of biscuity sweetness to it. The oaty creaminess is coming out, and there's maybe a little touch of a wheaty quality to this beer as well. But in terms of the sort of floral, grassy side of the hops, this one for me really leans a little bit towards the sort of grassy side of things. There's not too much of a kind of floral aromaticity from this beer. The aroma, the main component of the aroma, of course, is these kind of big juicy fruits that we're talking about. And like I said, it's the blueberries and the tangerines from the mosaic that are really jumping out at me from this one. But it smells really nice, a nice big juicy New England type IPA, this one. So not really much more to say about the aroma. Let's get stuck into the beer. So this one is the Chief of Chiefs, the double dry hop version, the DDH from the Bearded Iris Brewing Company in Germantown in Nashville in Tennessee. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, that's pretty good, that, I have to say. You know, it's a very, very solid New England IPA, this one. It's really pretty fresh as well. I don't know how long Brewdog had this can in the fridge in the bar in Aberdeen. But you know, I picked this one out because I was just like, you know, I have to have I've never had a Tennessee beer before, but this one it's holding up pretty well. It really is quite fresh, this beer. But it's pretty good, this, I have to say. You know, thumbs up to Bearded Iris on this one. It's, you know, it is pretty much kind of what you'd expect. It's a really, really solid beer. In terms of the kind of malty side of the beer, middle of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of that nice kind of bready malt, that wheaty bready quality, that just blankets the middle of your tongue. When you start to move further and further into the aftertaste, you really start to pick up a little bit more of that kind of oaty, creamy quality that you expect from the New England type IPAs, and you can really feel that building a little bit. If you just go right down the middle line of your tongue, you can pick up a little bit of that biscuity note coming out of the beer, that cookie note for the Americans, I should say that. But you can really pick up that little bit of biscuity sweetness as you go down the middle part of your palate. There's not really a caramelly note to this, but to be honest, you wouldn't expect that too often. There are some breweries that add a little bit of caramel to their New England type IPAs, but I don't think this one has caramel in it. I think it's more of a kind of biscuity quality that's coming out of this one. But I would say the malt base kind of builds in sweetness as your mouth adjusts to this beer. You always need a few sips to kind of adjust your palate fully. But it is nicely done, this beer. It's a really solid New England IPA, this. It has, what I would say about it as well, the other thing that I'm starting to notice about it, it does have a little bit of that kind of West Coast mouthfeel to it a little bit. It's a little bit more oily and less creamy compared to some of the other New England IPAs that I've had. And to be honest, I quite like that. I like the sort of New England flavours, but I like a little bit more of a kind of oily character to the beer. I think it brings out the malt base a little bit more. And I think it brings out a little bit of that biscuit sweetness, and I think that just adds a bit of more kind of complexity to the IPAs. I always said the same about black IPAs. I like them to have a little bit of a caramelly sweetness in them, rather to balance out the black malt. And I think having a little bit of a biscuity caramel sweetness to kind of, so it sort of gives you a little bit of contrast to just that sort of smooth oaty quality. And this one has that, which I do like about it. So on the hoppy side of this beer then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. That'll be, I would say, mainly the mosaic hop. The mosaic hop out of the ones that are in this is the one that'll give you that little touch of earthiness there. But it's quite a smooth earthiness, I would say. It's not too prominent. As you come further forward along the sides of your palate, you get a nice little bit of that floral aromaticity. There's a little touch of spiciness to it, but it's not too much. It has a little bit of a kind of dank quality to it as well. That's how you can tell the beer's fresh, of course, but as you go round the very front curve of your palate, just staying on the edge of the tongue, you get a little bit of that lighter kind of grassy note that you expect from the beer as well. And of course, just behind the front curve of your palate, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those nice, fruity, juicy esters start to come out of the beer. That's where this beer really starts to show itself off a little bit. So for me, it's passion fruit that's kind of forming the base of this beer. You can feel that slightly darker passion fruity flavour just kind of blanketing the front part of your tongue there. On top of that, as the flavour evolves a little bit, you start to get the slightly juicier mango coming out of it, and you can pick up that there's a little touch of orange in there as well. As you go further and further into the aftertaste, you start to get these little fruity complexities that you'd expect. For me, the blueberries are coming out. The blueberries are staying there really nicely into the aftertaste, and you can pick up that there's a little bit of the lychee and maybe even a little bit of blueberry, a little bit of gooseberry, sorry, from the citra in there as well. It's definitely a kind of gooseberry note. There's maybe even it's not lime, but the fruity complexities in this one, as you go further into the aftertaste, you've seen how long it was since I took a sip of the beer. It's really now the blueberries, the lychees, and a little bit of the gooseberries that are starting to come out of this beer now, which is really quite interesting. There maybe is just a little touch of a kind of limey note to the beer as well, which is interesting. Normally you get lime from Equinaut, of course. It's the really big limey hop, but you can sometimes get a bit of a lemon limey quality from the citra in the back end of the flavour. But you know, this beer, it really is just very solid. It's all about how these kind of flavours blend together. This one's a really quite straight up IPA. I think when I checked it out on Rate Beer, it had like I'm sure it was a 96 overall, and or it was either a 98 overall and a 96 within the style, or vice versa. It was some way around like that. So it is a really highly rated New England IPA, this, and I can see why. It's very, very solid in what it's done. It's not overly complex. It's just meant to be a nice kind of easy drinking sort of thing. It's 7.5%. You know, the easy drinking term's maybe not the best word for me to use, but it's a really just nice drinker, this beer. You would have one or two of these when you're out for dinner or something like that. But of course, don't drive after it, because these kind of beers are the ones that can sneak up on you. But in terms of its flavour, it's really, really nice, and it's solid. I mean, it's quite cool to have one that's got the straight up American hops. A lot of the ones that we get in Europe, they'll maybe have some Slovenian hops in them, they'll have a little bit of Australian or New Zealand as well, and a bit of American hops in them. So it is kind of cool to have one that's using just the American hops, which is and I think these three sort of combine quite well. The Citra, the Simcoe, and the Mosaic. The Citra and Simcoe are a little bit more classic these days, and the Mosaic is a little bit newer, but they are very popular American hops. So for me, that's what's quite cool about this beer, that it is straight up in the American hop kind of thing. I like that about this one. Throw in a bit of Amarillo as well and give you a bit of orange. That would be really, really cool. But for me, a really nice double IPA. It's got pretty much everything you would want from the style, so thumbs up to Bearded Iris for this. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say, you know, mid-bodied. Carbonation is really quite smooth. It has that kind of creamy mouthfeel that you'd expect, but like I said, it has got a little bit of that West Coast quality. It's got a little touch of an oily note to it, which is quite nice. It's somewhere in the middle in terms of its mouthfeel from what you'd expect from the New England IPA and a West Coast IPA, which I do like. I like there to be a little bit of sweetness, and that oily mouthfeel that it has brings out a little bit of that biscuit flavour. The malt base has a good balance between the smoothness, like I was saying, and a little bit of that sweetness, that biscuity note that I was talking about. Good little bit of hoppy bitterness from this one. I would guess, in terms of its IBUs, it's maybe somewhere around 40. I think this is somewhere around the 40 IBU mark, this one, but a nice little bit of a juicy fruity quality from this beer. Overall, like I said, a really, really solid New England type IPA, this one. I like having one that's got just the American hops in it. I think that's quite cool to sort of try them on their own. Because in Scotland, of course, and Sweden, where I always get my beers from, we've got a bit more license. We import things from everywhere because we don't grow our own hops. So it's quite cool to try one that is a sort of straight up American IPA, if you like. But for me, a really, really solid beer, and I'm glad that I got to review this one. It's definitely a good one to kind of kick off my Tennessee reviews with. So yeah, let's leave it at that. So I hope you've enjoyed my first Tennessee beer review. It's been really cool to try this one. Hopefully I can get out to Tennessee again and try a few more of the breweries around there. It would be cool to get back out to the US. Like I say, it's been about 8 years. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know some other beers you'd like me to try from Tennessee as well. It's always good to have a stockpile, a kind of list that I should go through. But thank you once again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. This was the Chief of Chiefs, the double dry hop version from the Bearded Iris Brewery in the Germantown area of Nashville in Tennessee. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slanger just now.